The first thing Kale noticed about her wasn't the blue skin, the silver-white hair, or even the way her yellow jumpsuit clung like it had been vacuum-sealed onto a very distracting shape. It was the fact that she was in his repair bay alone, messing with his tools. "Hey!" he barked, sparks from the plasma cutter flaring in his hand. "Those aren't for." She turned around, pulling her hood up in a slow, unhurried motion, like she had all the time in the galaxy to make him shut up. That face, smooth, alien, framed by two perfect strands of platinum hair, wasn't what he expected from the dock rat the station manager said needed a job. Her eyes, pale as frost under twin moons, swept down his bare chest before returning to his face. "You're loud, human. Is that a mating display or a work habit?" Kale blinked, feeling heat rise in his neck. "What? No, this is work. And we don't display. She adjusted the hood with delicate fingers, a motion so casual it was practically illegal in a place filled with hot pipes and sparks. "Shame. I thought the chest exposure was an invitation. On my planet, that's how you say I'm available and handy with my hands." Kale tried not to picture what available meant on her planet. Tried and failed spectacularly. "I'm here to fix engines. Not whatever that was." She tilted her head, studying him like he was some rare piece of salvage she wasn't sure was worth keeping. "And I'm here to fix other things." Her voice had that dangerous softness, like a whisper from someone standing too close. The kind that made Kale's brain decide important details like, why is there an alien in my bay? Could be handled later. Still, he forced himself to be professional. "Name, Vyra," she said, zipping the front of her jumpsuit just an inch lower as she stepped closer. The move wasn't even subtle. It was an orbital missile aimed directly at his self-control. Kale took a half step back, bumping into a control panel. "Okay, Vyra, you're supposed to be sorting coolant lines, not, His eyes flicked down despite his best efforts. "Distracting me from welding." She glanced at the shower of sparks still cascading from the plasma cutter. "You're very good with that tool, Kale. Big, steady, hot." "Are you?" he started, then stopped. That's not a compliment I get at work." Vyra smiled faintly, teeth like polished pearl. "It should be. Where I'm from, we take tool work very seriously. Often together." Kale felt a dangerous grin tug at his lips. "You know that sounds exactly how I meant it," she interrupted. Somewhere down the corridor, a bulkhead clanged, snapping him out of it. Kale shook his head, trying to reassemble his professionalism. "Look, just keep your hood up and stay out of trouble. This station's not a safe place for blue women in tight jumpsuits," she guessed. "For anyone who doesn't know what they're doing," he corrected, though his voice cracked in the middle. Vyra leaned against a bulkhead, every curve an unspoken dare. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm doing, human. I just haven't decided if you're ready for it." And Kale, in that moment, realized two things. One, this was not going to be a normal work shift. Two, he was absolutely going to find out what was under that hood, no matter how much trouble it got him into. Kale was elbow-deep in a disassembled thruster when Vyra's voice drifted over his shoulder like warm air slipping under a closed door. "You work too hard, human." He didn't even have to turn to know she was leaning against the wall again, probably in that same infuriatingly casual stance that said, "I'm here to ruin your concentration and you're gonna let me." "Work keeps me alive," he muttered, tightening a bolt. "Also keeps the station from falling into a gravity well." She hummed, stepping closer. "Where I'm from, we have other ways to keep busy." Her scent hit him before she did. Something faintly metallic, like starlight on cold steel, mixed with something sweet and distracting. He felt her crouch beside him, the zipper of her jumpsuit whispering as she moved. Kale kept his eyes firmly on the thruster. "If you're here to help, there's a plasma torch on the bench. If you're here to talk about your home planet's recreational activities, maybe later." "Maybe later," she repeated, as if testing the words for taste. "Does that mean yes?" "It means I don't say no until I've heard the details." That earned him a low laugh, the kind that made it feel like she was exhaling directly against his neck. The details would make you blush, human. Kale risked a glance at her, and immediately regretted it. Vira was balanced on her heels, hands resting on her knees, eyes locked on him like a predator assessing the perfect angle to pounce. The hood framed her face like a halo, but her smirk told him she was anything but angelic. "You've got that look," she said. "What look?" "The one males get right before they either run away or do something very, very stupid." Kale turned back to his work, fighting a smirk. "Guess you'll have to stick around to find out which one I am." She slid closer, and he swore he could feel the faint brush of her knee against his thigh. "I've already decided. You're the stupid kind." "Comforting," he deadpanned, but his pulse had quickened. Vira leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Do you know why I'm really here, Kale?" He glanced at her again. "The station manifest says, Coolant Systems Assistant." She grinned. "The manifest also says your cargo bay is clean. I saw at least 3 boxes labeled miscellaneous danger." "Those aren't dangerous if you don't open them," he countered. "And I'm very bad at not opening things," she replied, eyes sparkling. Before Kale could retort, a warning klaxon echoed through the corridor. The overhead lights flickered, shadows slicing across her blue skin in pulses. Kale dropped the wrench, standing in one motion. "That's an actual emergency." Vira straightened as well, her smile not fading in the slightest. "Good. I was getting bored." "Not good. That alarm's tied to the reactor coolant feed. If it overheats, we get to test whether your species enjoys molten death," she interrupted, pulling her hood down in one smooth motion. The move should not have been as distracting as it was, but under the flickering lights, her hair caught the glow like spun silver, and Kale forgot his train of thought for exactly 3 dangerous seconds. He forced himself toward the hatch, tools clattering. "Stay here." "Not a chance," she replied, matching his pace. "If you melt, I melt. And I'm not letting you do that alone." The hallway ahead was lined with steam and the hiss of pressure release. Kale hit the control panel, cursing under his breath. "Coolant valves jammed." "Then unjam it," Vira said simply. He shot her a look. "That's the plan." Vira stepped closer to the panel, eyes narrowing. "No, that's your plan. My plan is faster." Before Kale could ask, she reached into the side pocket of her jumpsuit and pulled out something small, metallic, and very much not standard issue. "What is that?" he demanded. "A shortcut," she said with a mischievous grin. "And before you ask, it's not technically legal." He had a sinking feeling he was about to find out exactly what not technically legal meant in Vira's vocabulary. And for reasons he couldn't explain, he wasn't entirely sure he wanted her to stop. The shortcut turned out to be a palm-sized device shaped like a spanner, had a very irresponsible one-night stand with a grenade. Vira flicked a small lever on its side, and it began to hum with a pitch that made Kale's teeth ache. "Vira! Relax, human," she said, crouching in front of the coolant valve like she'd done this 1,000 times. "This'll unstick it. It'll also void every safety regulation in the quadrant." Kale hissed, watching her wedge the device against the corroded control ring. One wrong pulse and we're bathing in vaporized coolant. Vira didn't even look at him. Vapor baths are considered sensual therapy on Clithera-9. Kale opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again because that mental image was already ruining his concentration. The device gave a sharp CHK, and the valve spun violently with a hiss of escaping steam. Vira leaned back, grinning like a cat that had just successfully robbed a fish market. "See? Fixed." Kale exhaled in disbelief. "You could have killed us." "But I didn't," she pointed out, standing and brushing her hands on her hips. "That's the difference between a worker and an artist." "An artist," he repeated. "Yes." She stepped closer, her voice dropping. "And trust me, Kale, I have more than one medium." Her words hung in the steam-thick air, somewhere between threat and invitation. He told himself it was the coolant leak making his skin feel hot, but he wasn't buying his own excuse. They turned to head back toward the repair bay, but before they made it 5 steps, The overhead lights snapped to a deep red. The klaxon's tone changed to something more urgent, more final. Kale froze. That's the evacuation signal. Vira tilted her head, utterly unconcerned. Is that bad? Only if you like breathing, he snapped, bolting toward the bay. She followed without hurrying, her long strides somehow keeping up with his near sprint. You panic so easily. On my planet, danger is foreplay. On my planet, danger is how you get dead. He shot back, shoving open the hatch to the bay. Inside, several of Kale's colleagues were already scrambling into evac suits. A wiry mechanic named Dorv shouted over the alarms. Reactor spike. Hull cores going unstable. 30 minutes tops. Kale grabbed his toolkit and a respirator. We can vent the pressure if we can get to the auxiliary control, which is probably locked down and guarded. Vira interrupted, already stepping toward the secondary hatch. Guarded by who? Kale demanded. She smirked. Let's find out. They found out fast. The auxiliary control corridor was blocked by 2 station security drones, thick-bodied, heavily armed, and dumb as asteroids. Kale muttered, We can't get past those without a clearance chip. Vira leaned casually against the wall. Or, without distracting them. He eyed her suspiciously. How exactly do you distract a machine? Vira's smile turned downright wicked. Same way I distract humans. Make them focus on something else entirely. Before Kale could stop her, she stepped into the open, pulling her hood fully back and slowly unzipping her jumpsuit halfway down her chest. Kale sputtered, That's not going to. One of the drones swiveled toward her immediately, scanning. She waved sweetly at it. Hi, boys. The drones emitted a confused warble, some glitch in their behavior matrix kicking in. That was all the opening Kale needed. He darted forward, sliding under one drone's chassis, yanking out a coolant relay wire, and sending it crashing to the deck. The other one rotated in confusion, and Vira stepped up, planting the heel of her boot directly into its sensor array. Both drones clattered to the floor, inert. Kale stood, catching his breath. I can't believe that worked. Vira zipped her jumpsuit back up with a grin. Everyone's got a weakness, Kale. Some are just more universal. They pushed into auxiliary control, steam hissing from ruptured pipes overhead. Kale started on the pressure valves while Vira scanned the reactor readouts. Her smile faded for the first time. We're not going to make it in 30 minutes. Kale froze. What? She glanced at him, her tone flat. We've got 10. Maybe less. For a long moment, they just stared at each other through the drifting steam. Then Kale muttered, Guess we'd better do something stupid. Vira's smirk returned. My favorite kind of something. The stupid plan began with Kale prying open a control panel that was never meant to be opened and Vira producing a small vial of shimmering, viscous liquid from inside her jumpsuit. He blinked. What is that? Reactor-grade coolant catalyst. Illegal on half the charted systems. Burns through pressure like a plasma knife through ration pudding, she said, shaking it gently so it glowed. Kale's gut tightened. And if it destabilizes the coolant flow? We either save the station, Vira interrupted, or create the biggest fireworks display this side of the Perseid Rift. The way she said fireworks display made Kale think she wouldn't mind either outcome. Still, there wasn't time for anything else. He snapped a pair of gloves on, nodding. All right, we go on 3. 1. Vira leaned closer, her breath warm on his cheek. Kale, you ever wonder why I took this job? 2. I didn't need it. I came here because I heard about the human who could fix anything. His hands hesitated over the panel. This is not the time. Her gaze locked on his. It's exactly the time. Because if we don't make it out of here, I want you to know I didn't come for the engines. For one heartbeat too long, neither of them moved. Then Kale growled, 3, and slammed the panel open. Vira poured the catalyst in one smooth motion. The reaction was instant. Steam roared out in a white wave, the deck shuddered, and alarms screamed in overlapping tones. Kale twisted the release valves, his muscles straining against decades of corrosion. Pressure's dropping, he shouted. Vira's grin was feral. Told you. Art. But the readouts were still climbing, slower now but climbing. They had bought time, not salvation. Still not enough, Cale muttered, scanning the controls. His eyes landed on a manual override buried behind a mass of tangled conduits. We'll have to pull the primary control rod by hand. Vira arched a brow. You know that will cook whoever does it from the inside out, right? Cale's jaw tightened. Yeah, which is why you're staying here. She stepped in front of him, blocking the hatch. Not happening. I didn't come here to watch you turn into roast human. Vira. No, she said firmly. We pull it together or we don't pull it at all. The corridor to the control rod housing was like stepping into a furnace. The air shimmered, and Cale's skin prickled under his jumpsuit. Vira's blue complexion took on a faint luminescent sheen, her body instinctively adapting to the heat. You're actually handling this better than me, Cale panted. She flashed him a quick smile. Perks of my species. We run hotter. Makes us very popular in... Don't finish that sentence, Cale groaned, yanking open the final hatch. The control rod loomed ahead, glowing faintly from residual energy. They both grabbed hold, muscles straining in unison. On 3 again? She asked. No, he said through clenched teeth. Now. With a violent lurch, the rod slid free. A wave of cool air rushed through the corridor as the alarms shifted pitch, signaling stabilization. They staggered back, both drenched in sweat. Cale from exertion, Vira from, well, maybe not exertion. Back in auxiliary control, the reactor readouts were dropping steadily. They had done it. Cale leaned against the wall, chest heaving. You're insane. Vira stepped closer, her voice soft but charged. And you're alive because of it. He looked at her for a long moment, then said, So, this the part where you tell me what you really came here for? She grinned, pulling her hood back up. Maybe later. Right now, I'm thinking about the shower in your quarters. Cale raised a brow. That's supposed to be a reward? She smirked. Depends. You like water hot enough to melt steel? He didn't answer. He just followed her out of the bay, fully aware that surviving the reactor wasn't the most dangerous thing he'd done today. If you thought this was the end, you haven't seen what happens when Vira decides she's staying. Stick around, things are about to get even hotter.